Hello, ShellBytes here. Today we're going to be starting a new series about making your own programming language. So I've got a GitHub repository for this setup. So if you go to this URL, github.com/shellbytes/sbl for ShellBytes language, you should find this and you can just clone it or download the repository onto your computer, and then you'll have this. And I'm going to be just using Ubuntu because then I can just use a Git client like this. So then I can do all of my Git stuff using this rather than something like source tree. So I've already done quite a lot of stuff actually for this, but none of it is actually the programming language. It's sort of all optional stuff. That's why I haven't put it in a video. It'll probably be a bit boring to watch anyway. So I've got a class called messages that's got these things in. If you want to have my exact code, just go onto GitHub and copy it. So it basically writes some stuff to a file. So every message that is displayed on screen is also written to a log file. So I've got different functions: log, info, warn, and error, depending on the different levels of message. And you can change your message level to one of these four things, and it will just, like, if you set it to error, then only error messages will show. If you set it to warning, then warning and error will show, and then like it's basically everything above that line is what's going to be shown. I've also just made some utilities for I/O, so that's all not particularly necessary, but I've put it in anyway, just not as a video. So today we're going to be starting the actual classes for our actual Tokenizer. So I'm going to make a new class and I'm going to put it in a new package. I'm going to call it token, and this is basically going to be, wait, let me just switch that onto a hierarchical view because it looks much better that way. A token is like one thing in a programming language. So for example, package would be a token, com would be another one, and then the dot, and then that, and then the dot, and then that, and then the dot, and then like the semicolon would be one, and each bracket would be one, all of those sorts of things. So that's basically what a token is. So we're going to have an enum called token type, and it's going to say all of the different types of token that we can have. At the moment I'm just going to put identifier, because we'll obviously be adding this and amending this as we go. And each token obviously is going to have some contents, and for debugging purposes we're also going to store the exact line and column that you were at in the file, as well as the file name, so that if we want to find where the error is, we can just look at the line and the column of that file and we can find it. So that is really good. We're also going to store a token type called type, and then let's make a constructor. So token string contents, int line, int column, string fname, token type type. So now I've got all of these set up. I'm just going to have getters for all of these. So I'm just going to go source, generate getters and setters, and select all of these, select getters, and I'm just going to hit OK, and then I've got getters for all of these, which is very useful. And that, I think, is going to be our token class actually completed. So there's really nothing much that you need to worry about inside the token class itself. So we're now going to go onto the Tokenizer. So this is going to take a file, in fact it's going to take a string of file contents, and it's going to split it into an array list of tokens. Yes, I am using an S, I am British, not American, I'm not going to be putting a Z there. We're going to have a public static function that's going to return an array list of tokens, and it's going to be called Tokenize. It's going to have code, and also a file name so that we can put that in our tokens. So we just need to import array list, and then that will all be fine. So obviously we've got to return an array list, so we're going to take an array list, token, tokens equals new array list. I'm going to return tokens, and obviously inside that is going to be a load of code. So in main.java we're going to have tokenizer.tokenize some code, and the code that we're going to have is going to be got from our IO. So we're going to go read text file main.sbl, I'll just call it that, and I'm going to do string code equals that. In fact, I'm also going to do string fname equals main.sbl, and then I can just put all of this here, and then I can probably wrap this in some sort of function at some point. So then it's going to run Tokenize on this code. So first, obviously, we need to make this document. If I just open this, actually I've already got terminal open, so it's cd sbl. I'm going to touch a new file, main.sbl, and then obviously I can just stick whatever I like in there. So inside my main.sbl I'm just going to have some test code, so test code. I'm also going to stick some random spacing in here just so that I can have a look at how I can remove spaces, because we don't care about spaces in this language. So I've stored that in that file, so I'm going to go back into Eclipse, and then I'm just going to sys out the code so that I can check that I've stored it properly. Here we go, and the test code is being shown. So that's brilliant, that's what we want. So let's go into the Tokenizer. So in here we are going to have a current token, and we're just going to go through all of the characters to find all the tokens, and then just chop them up into individual tokens, and the current token contents will be stored in this variable current tokens. We're also going to add a null character at the end of the string so that we can determine when the end of file is. So I'm just going to call that the EOF marker. So I'm going to basically take this code and send it to a char array so that we can access it via like indexing. We can just do some more useful things, and also we don't need it to be like dynamically sized, which a string obviously can do. We don't need that ability, so we're just going to put it into a char array. So we're going to have int line equals 1 and int column equals 1, and these are the trackers that tell us which line and column we are currently at, and we need those for our token constructor, as we need also the file name which we have got in the function. So obviously that's not going to be changing throughout the function. For int I equals 0, I is less than codechars.length I++. Inside this loop we're going to have char c equals codechars I, and that means that it's going to iterate over every single character in the code and store it in this variable c every time. In fact, to make it a little bit more efficient, I'm just going to have char c there, and then we won't need to worry about like more garbage collection and weird stuff. So I'm also going to have a boolean for whether c is a delimiter, and basically when we're wanting to chop up our code into individual things, we are going to have to use delimiters to determine which things will break up code and which things won't. So we're going to have a public static final char array called delimiters, and for the moment I'm just going to have space, tab, and new line as our list of delimiters Oh yeah, and also the \0. And then we have an array of all the delimiters that we're going to need. So inside here, for every time we're going to go through a new letter, we're going to set whether the delimiter is a delimiter to false. And then we're going to check for every delimiter in delimiters if C is actually equal to the delimiter. C is delimiter obviously equals true. And then from that we can determine whether C actually is something that will break apart individual tokens. So if C is not a delimiter, then, well, that's all fine. We're just going to do current token plus equals C, and then that is all fine, and we're just going to append the char to the current token. However, if it is a delimiter, we're going to do some cool stuff, and we're going to add some tokens to our array. So we're going to trim our token. So if current token.trim is actually nothing, so if the actual string is empty, then we're just going to do nothing. Else, if we're going to match it to an identifier, which we're not going to bother with that yet, we're just going to say everything's an identifier. So we're just going to go tokens.add new token, and if we just look in the constructor, we've got the contents are going to be current token, the line is going to be obviously what line is, and the column fname, and the type we're just going to have a constant type of identifier, and then that will be everything. However, we do need to do some stuff about incrementing these line and column variables, because currently they'll just be 1 all the time, and we don't want that. So if C is a new line character, then we're going to increment line and set the column to 1. Else we're going to increment column. So this is our entire tokenizing function, and that will return an array list, sorry, to Tokenizer, to the main method over here. So if I stick an array list, if I call this tokens equals that, then for token tk in tokens, sysout tk. So I'm just going to go into token and override the to string function. So I'm going to return, I'm going to make a string, I'm going to say token, in fact I'm going to do a quote mark, and then contents, another quote mark, at line plus integer dot to string line column integer dot to string column in file. So I don't really like it being this line being this long, so I'm just going to chop it up here like this, and that needs a plus sign in there, and that should work. So if I run this, we have a slight problem. We have these tokens are being cut off in the right places, but our string is not being removed each time. And what I mean by that is it's basically accumulating the tokens contents rather than leaving them. So every time we add a token, we're also going to want to do current token. In fact, I'm just going to put this over here. I'm going to do current token equals nothing, and then when I run this, it actually only gives us 4 tokens, and that is exactly what we want, and they're cut up exactly correctly. So that is our tokenizer, and I mean, obviously it's very rudimentary at the moment. In fact, I'm going to change this to messages.log because tk.toString, because we want to use the messages class so that it gets written to our log file rather than just being put out in this into the screen. So this is working perfectly now. We have a tokenizer that works, and obviously we can tweak it as much as we want to add new identifiers, new delimiters, and all of that. But now we have our basic setup. So thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be working on the parser.